Savvy Business Radio, home to over 500,000 listeners per month, and runs in syndication on 8 AM/FM stations nationwide, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out in a bigger way, call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.
Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. This is your host, Christina Nichman. Our first guest today is Shonda Sumpter, founder and queen visionary of Hardcore Business. Shanda is a dynamic teacher who has transformed the financial lives of thousands of people through her products and group programs. Her mission is to share with her clients the same principles and strategies that took her from struggling entrepreneur to CEO of a multi-million-dollar empire. Find out more at hardcorebusiness.com. Our second guest is Krystle Andrus Morissette, a worldwide leader in the field of self-discovery and personal transformation. Krystle is the founder of SWOT Institute, an empowerment coach certification exclusively for women. Find out more about her latest book, The Emotional Edge, at theemotionaledge.com, and find out more about the SWOT Institute at SWOTinstitute.com. Hi, Shanda. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this morning?
I'm so good, thank you. Nice to be here with you.
I'm super happy to have you here today. You're going to share some wonderful tips with our audience in helping them build their list, helping them get clear on where is their passion and purpose taking them. Is it helping them grow to the business they want to be? And so much more. I'm really grateful to have you. You're out here with your wonderful business called Hardcore Business. And before we go sharing all those wonderful tidbits, share with our audience a little bit about your journey and how you came to being a coach.
Oh, that's such a long journey, but I'll give you this. I'll give you the snippet. I think I did what a lot of people do in the essence of I chased what I thought would give me a good career and a good life. Mm-hmm. I always had the taste in my mouth for wanting freedom, and so I made the mistake of following my father's footsteps, who I love, but he worked really, really hard, and he missed out on a lot of my childhood. And with that being said, he also ended up in 2 divorces and worked himself into really being quite sick. And so I share that because I started on that journey and I thought working really hard all the time was the way to grow. Mm-hmm. And when I get to the top, and I would get to the top quite quickly because I worked insane hours, not just every now and then. You and I were talking about that. Like you definitely have got your times where you've got to push, mm-hmm. and you pull some long hours. Like you're never going to get away from that if you're going to build a business. Mm-hmm. But to do it all the time, there's something that needs to change in your strategy. Mm-hmm. And so I'd climb the ladder, and I would end up finding myself that I would have autonomy, I'd have financial freedom, I would not have time freedom, and I didn't love what I was doing. And so I went to actually see a shaman because I was yet in another boyfriend relationship that was going nowhere, and I was getting disappointed in the relationship, and I had this great job that I had built, but I was out of town in London all the time. Every month I was there for 2 weeks, and I literally just kind of threw my hands up, and I was like, if this is all life has to offer, this just is not, I mean, I don't even, what's the point, you know? Yeah. So a friend of mine, it was like I was on the same hamster wheel. Like, it's like, okay, different boyfriend, same thing. Yeah. All right, different job, same feeling, you know, like I'd have the same feeling of like some level of depression or like just unsatisfactory, unsatisfied. So I go to see the shaman, and when I leave from seeing the shaman, there's like this record repeating in my head to go teach financial freedom. And I'm arguing with this voice of God on this record player in my mind, in my car, driving from Arizona to Las Vegas at the time. And I think I had a conversation with God where I just kind of said, okay, I'll phone a friend and see if they'll do a program with me. I knew nobody in the coaching industry. I didn't even know the coaching industry was a coaching industry. And I asked my friend Robert, because he was the only person I knew that was selling to like groups of people through teleconference lines, which now today I understand what that is. Mm-hmm. But back then I had no real concept. I was like, you pick up a phone and you teach a course on a phone, on a conference line. Okay, so I asked him, and he basically said sure, and gave me 24 hours to create a program, which I did, which is crazy. And we launched it, and I got 6 people for $2,000. And I was like, wow, well, that was amazing in itself financially. But what was really amazing was that I loved doing it.
Wow.
Like, I loved coaching people, and I got hooked, and I ended up coaching people for like $50 an hour, which is crazy because today I get paid insane amounts of money. We have over 400 clients on retainer, and our company's growing quickly. You know, so that's how I got into it. I fell into it, and I actually think I was ignorant enough and didn't ask too many questions and didn't overthink anything, and I think I was almost stupid enough to make it.
Wow.
I really do.
Wow. Well, I mean, I can totally relate to that myself. I remember when I had first had the aha moment that doing broadcasting is what my passion and where God wanted me. And I was arguing too. I was just listening to a podcast and God was telling me in my head, you need to do that. And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Seriously, I don't talk to people. No, I sit in a cube and I punch numbers. That's what I do. No, but I kicked and screamed for quite some time before I took the leap and did it. But yeah, I mean, it goes to show, and I like the fact that you didn't ask the how, you just started to take the steps forward. And I think that's one thing I missed early on, and I'm sure a lot of people listening in, that you'll get what people call them like intuition or gut feeling or messages from the universe or God, and they don't follow them. They're like, oh, but that couldn't possibly, the buts. And
oh my God, can I tell you something crazy?
Go.
So, and you are fantastic at interviewing. I get interviewed a lot, and you have just such a warmness to you. I love it. So my whole next event's under the theme faith. And when I made that decision, going back to your point, to do, like last year when I made the decision to have this whole next event under the theme faith, it was about, as entrepreneurs, we climb these mountains to get to the top. And I've coached over 2,000 people now. And what I find is a lot of people give up when they get to the top because I think they put marketing in the wrong order. It's kind of the foundation of putting an email list underneath you and just putting certain things. It's like a house will stand through a storm if it has a good foundation. A business owner will be able to stand through the storms that are coming and are upon you right now if you have a good foundation. So I created this whole I have this whole vision of hundreds of people in the room, and I'm going to help them climb the rest of the mountain, the last couple miles that are the hardest, and then push them over the top so they soar. And I see this whole vision. I'm like, I'm just going to push all these people over the top of the mountain at this event so they just really get it and they have an insanely great year. And then everything in my business broke.
What? Wow.
And I was like, really? And so do you know Joel Osteen?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I listen to him on XM radio. It's the only reason why I have XM radio. And I listened to him, and he said something about tithing. Then my girlfriend, Lisa Sasevich, who I don't know if you know her,
yes,
but her and I had lunch, and she's like, I was saying to her, I'm really feeling called to stop all my tithes and start new tithes from the heart. And I just listened to Joel Osteen. He said, give God 6 months. And then she's like, oh, my gosh, I just finished reading this book last year, and I think she tithed like $600,000 or something like that in a year. And there's a whole story around that. But it was like so there was all this messaging around tithing. And so I've been tithing like crazy all year, and it's a lot. It's a lot more comfortable than I would want to be, or a lot more uncomfortable than I want to be. And I tithed $10,000 to Joel Osteen like last month. And I don't know the man, right? So it's like you guys on the radio who are making a difference. You're making a huge difference. Like it's just a few words that have kept me faithful. And so as everything's broken in my business, I just keep remembering, okay, I'm tithing for a minimum of 6 months at 10%. I'm, my event's faith. And so, of course, I'm being tested on faith. And it's like all these things break, and then you have to step into yet another storm of uncertainty to see if it's going to work. So for me, it looks like we let go of our Facebook team and brought on a new Facebook team that's all about cold traffic, like online cold traffic, which is very hard to convert, especially if you're a coach or something like that. You just need to know how to do it. I don't want to put that in your head like it's hard to convert, but it's harder than a list, right? If you have an email list, it is very easy to be financially free, which is why I'm a strong, strong advocate on the planet for telling everybody who, if you're not making great money and your profit margins aren't nice and fat, like 35, 40% profit margins, then you haven't built your email list properly, or you haven't built an email list. And I know that, like I just know that. I walk into rooms and I'll ask people, like, how many people have a list? Everybody puts up their hand. How many people have a list of 5,000 or more? Most people put down their hand. Well, 5,000, that's a multiple six-figure income if it's done right. Right? So, as you start getting into 20, 25,000, I have clients inside of, and the only reason why I say that is to paint a perspective for people. In 90 days, you can build a hot email list. In 90 days, you can build 2,000 to 3,000. I have clients that do 15 and 13,000 on their first list builds learning it, right? Wow. So I share that with you because, you're gonna have these moments as an entrepreneur where you're stepping into the abyss of, and you have to have faith. You have to be, you either have to be really dumb and just allow it to happen and just be like so inspired by your vision, or you have to be like, okay, I know that the way is going to show up, because if you're, and most entrepreneurs are some level of controllers, right? Like the president, like there's some level of controllers. So not that it's a bad thing, but controlling the wrong thing will have you grow slow. So if you're a controller and you're writing too many plans, what happens is, I don't know about you, but I have yet to meet an entrepreneur, whether they're starting mid-level or they're in the $100 million mark, that their plan has ever been run the way they wrote their plan. It never happens that way. So to spend your time writing the plan, you just feel better. So you're just taking attention off you, but it still hasn't produced any results.
Wow, Shonda, this is amazing that we're going here. I know even last year, it was last year during Christmas, I got after prayer, the vision from God that I should start doing my show in front of a live audience. Ooh. Yes. And I was like, no, God, I don't do that. I don't stand in front.
You're arguing again.
Yes, I'm arguing. No, but it's funny. And then I said, after, fighting back and forth, I said, okay, I'm going to do it. Okay, I'll do it. So I immediately, before I could think any further, just called out one of my close business contacts who has a fabulous business and said, hey, will you be my first guest? And she said, oh, I'm honored, yes. Then me and my partner got to going to getting it set up. And God bless my partner. He's a brilliant man, very visual. And he said, you've got to do this right. A lot of people set up a camera and some chairs and just talk, but you've got to make this look spectacular. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do everything for you. So we did that. And then, like your business, the day before, everything fell apart, our first show. And then we had a bunch of people coming out to the show that said, we want to sponsor your next show. So we're thinking we're having, future prospects and future revenue lined up. And we're super excited. We get there and everything falls apart. There was a big thing going on in the city. No one could get there. The light camera people couldn't get the equipment there on time. People were sitting in their chair for about an hour and a half before we could even start the show. And they were, by that point, really angry. It just did not turn out the way we expected. And at that point, I thought, why am I doing this, God? What was your, why did you tell me to do this? And then, like you, I decided, you know what? I'm not going to question. I'm just going to go forward in faith and trust that it's supposed to be. And then the next show and the ones preceding, we've now done 9 now. And they've all been super spectacular, but it took falling flat on our face the first time and going forward in faith, like you said, that it starts to work out. And I think that's what you mean, Shonda, that a lot of times people get to the mountain, even go over the top, but then they say, oh, I'm not reaching the gold, and then they pull back. And they're just at that point where they're ready to explode and blossom, and then they just pull back.
Yeah, and often what's sad is they make it about their kids or their boyfriends or their husbands or their parents being sick. And I mean this with so much compassion because I so know that they believe it. Like you know what I mean? Like you really believe it's about the fact that, I'm not going to miss this time with my kids, or, you know what, my husband, is ready to divorce me because, I'm, working too hard. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's all business strategy. I mean, that's all business strategy. It's like I was sharing with you, a few months ago, I woke up and I said to Ash, my fiance, I said, babe, I if I have to get up at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning again, for the rest of this year. Meanwhile, we're like closing in on the rest of the year, right? But I'm pooped being a new mom, you know, running this company, the growth, the financial risk as we've like done we just did another infomercial, and, you know, the first infomercial fell flat, you know what I mean? Like, and that's a couple $100,000 investment, and plus we're building a house. Like, come on, you guys, like this is your life. Like, so if you can play small, but you're still going to have these feelings of like your parents getting sick and, you know, your children, you know, needing more of your time. And it's about you strategizing. Like today I'm going to Legoland with my son, and I'm not going at 9 o'clock in the morning because, you know, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Like I've got other things to do at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then I got to go see my interior designer for my house because she needs my attention too. And then I needed to do my run like early this morning to make sure that I was, you know, ready to do all of the other things, you know, and then I'll go to Legoland at about 2 o'clock for a couple hours with my 1.5-year-old son, with my girlfriend and her son. So I think what people do is they think that they need to do it all in excellence, in the essence of like, I got to go to Legoland for the entire day to make up for not being with my son. It's like, no. Like you got to get that there's different seasons and there's different priorities, and you got to move the priorities around. But like, I love my son and I love my fiance, but they are not number one every single month. They're just not. There's some months that my event is number one, but then the month of December, they're number one because I take the month of December off and I just spend time with them, and I'm at their beck and call for when they're home from work and when you get what I'm saying? Like, so it's about strategy. And when things start to get hard, like I was like, okay, I need to downsize my company. It's like, no, I don't need to downsize my company. I need a new general manager. So for every single entrepreneur, there's a book that my friend Drew Canoli told me to read, and it was one of the best books that I've read in getting what's called an integrator in your business. And so entrepreneurs are typically visionaries. And so there's a book called Rocket Fuel. I swear I probably have sent thousands of people to them at this point. It's called Rocket Fuel, and their website is Rocket Fuel Now. And the reason why it's important to get this book is because first of all, on their website, they have 2 tests. They have a visionary test and an integrator test. And what I did is I went and placed an ad on Craigslist. And on Craigslist, I looked for an integrator. And I actually used those words. Okay. And the power of that book is they'll show you how to hire an integrator, and that is somebody who can catch your vision really quick. So a lot of times, especially in the coaching industry or the virtual world or the small business world, we often hire contractors, part-time employees, things like that.
Yes.
Right? And so we're hiring people that we're hoping will catch our vision and go get it done. And then we're frustrated because we're like, I got to do it myself because they just don't have the same, you know, the same skill set, or they don't see the same vision, or, you know, it doesn't get done, or there's just some level of it wasn't you.
Yes.
Well, a good integrator actually has a skill set where they can catch your vision, and they're how-to people. And there's a very special person that can do this, and that integrator can grow up in your company and make you multiple millions. I went into the multiple millions before I hired an integrator, which is why it got so tough for me. And that's why I was working such insane hours, because I was so blessed with a lot of opportunity like you are. Yes. And what was happening is there's only so many hours in a day. I can't get it all done. And so what was happening is I was starting to bleed financially in certain areas because I was making bad decisions, because I really just didn't have time to sit down. Like, oh, my assistant needs my help here and she's making mistakes. I just don't know. I don't have the time to sit down with her. You know what I mean? Where now my integrator fields all of my emails, even with my assistant. She's just recently taken my assistant off my email thread and said, I don't want you talking to your assistant anymore. You talk to me, and I'm going to organize your assistant so that when she comes back online with you, you guys work together better.
Fabulous. Yeah.
Best book ever. Will save a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. And this is so great. So it's we talked earlier about the importance of having a system. Now you touched on it early in the conversation, email lists. And you mentioned a little bit like cold lists and hot lists and all that jazz. Share the importance of having an email list and what does it do for your business?
Well, okay. So an email list is the most important thing if you want to risk manage your business and if you want really healthy, good cash flow. Here's why it's important. So the platforms that we are all on, they're not our platforms, like Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. They're not our platforms. And so we're spending all this money to build them, which is fine, but you have to remember that there's what's called a data game going on behind them. These, and I won't go too much into that, but you don't own it. And so you pay to play on it and you pay to grow it, but you don't own it. And things like, I have a friend of mine who sells a product, like a health product, and 3 years ago he was laying off people and almost completely shut his doors to his company. And so you can go from riding high to completely BK, bankrupt, really quickly inside of a couple months. I have another friend who's spending $1 million a month on Facebook ads, and she's a little bit panicked right now. She has a $20 million a year business.
Wow.
But if Facebook shifts, which they will, and she knows they will, all of a sudden her business could be, she's like, I could probably float it for like 5 or 6 months.
Whoa.
Do you know what I mean? So the email list is, you own it. It's in your database, but you need to communicate with it on a regular basis in a valuable way. So we have an email list of, I think we're at 120 or 140,000. And we grow it through doing something called the reporter model, which is basically what you and I are doing. It's an interview series done in a very Oprah-style way, and we interview a series of people in industries that have our ideal client. I actually wrote all about this in my book, Core Calling. You can find it on Amazon. I wrote everything about how we do it, like 100% in that book. But that's how we build our email list. And the importance of that is now you've created what's called referral traffic. So, for instance, even at my zone event, and I'm not trying to drop all my names in here, I'm just using them as examples. So at my zone event, a lot of my clients are, a lot of my friends are filling live events through Facebook ads, through selling tickets, things like that. Well, we have a heavy referral program. We have 320 people out of 500 and something right now coming that are referrals from our clients. That's hot traffic, right? Like if I told you, if I told you that you had to, like the book, like Rocket Fuel, like you have to go read this book. It's going to change your life. You're going to be able to scale your company, make more money, and not have to do all the work yourself. Go get Rocket Fuel. That's a hot, warm lead from friend to friend.
Yes, it is.
Right? And so the chances of you getting that book versus seeing an ad about the book through Facebook or you hearing about it, through, you get what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
if it's just, if it's randomly, even on a bookshelf, it just doesn't have the same power and the energy behind it, right? There's a human energy behind things. And when you're told about something with a level of excitement and conviction, it becomes warm to hot traffic.
Wow.
And so your email list is warm to hot traffic. And people underestimate this because they say things like, well, people aren't answering emails anymore. That's not true. I mean, that's just not true. People are answering emails right now if your emails are compelling and you're their ideal client. Have you ever heard the clothing line Free People?
No.
Okay, so there's a clothing line Free People. You should go get on their list, their email list, and watch how they email you like 4 or 5 times a week. Whoa. And it's good emails, like the winter leggings that you can't live without. You're like, oh, well, let me just see what those are. Or the mini skirt for 40-year-olds that's coming back into style. You're like, oh, let me check that out. You know what I mean? Like they just have great subject lines for their ideal client. And I didn't like Free People clothes when I first saw them. I was like, that's such a hippie line. So not me. I'm more like Blake Lively style. That's the style I like. And I was like, I'm totally not into the Free People stuff. Well, of course, I want to study their marketing, so I get on their list. Before I know it, I am not kidding you, I've probably spent about $2,000 on free people in the last 2 months.
Wow. Wow.
And that's through them marketing me into warm traffic.
Wow. This is really, really amazing. And I know I have to pay a lot more attention to my list. I don't really send out regular email lists. So this is great that we're having this conversation because we had mentioned before the interview how few people actually pay attention to their list, and I would be one of them. So This is great. We're going over that. And what's the difference? What I noticed a couple of years ago, I'd started out as training wheels for getting my podcast up and rolling on Blog Talk Radio because I knew nothing about broadcasting or getting a podcast up and running, and they were a huge help. What ended up happening, though, because I started my whole network on their platform, is that they had a huge shift. Everything changed overnight, and I went from one night having over 50,000 listens per show on some shows to 0 until they got their things up and going. And I heard other guests who had millions of listens per day or week or month, and they said, I went to 0. And it was because they shifted their entire network, their entire platform. So then then I realized that's what we need to, and that's what I tell all my clients now, that you really need to have your own platform. And I use my own platform through running all my shows on my website now so that people don't have to go to a Blog Talk Radio. They're on my page, on my website.
This is happening in every model. Like people are making this mistake in every model. Like I'm watching people like chase the end result because they just don't know better. And they make mistakes, and then they build a life. And if you build a life, and you've got a home, and you've got dreams and aspirations and commitments, and all of a sudden, an algorithm or a company shifts, you what are you going to do about it? I mean, change is definite, right? So I would take it even farther than just you have it on your website and your platform. You really need to engage the list. Extraordinarily, like I think it would even be powerful for you to do Facebook Lives with some of your top shows, because if you can do Facebook Lives on top of it, you will just, it'll just blow up.
Fabulous, fabulous. Well, I'm really going to take an initiative into paying attention about growing my list now and really paying attention to it because I paid so much attention to really getting the show and getting great guests and great content, but really using other platforms for many years and not my own. So this is great because I know I'm not the only one doing this. So this will be great to help others out there. And I want to thank you, Shonda. This has been so awesome having you talk about these very pertinent topics today. And before we leave, I can't let you leave without letting everyone know where they can contact you, find out more about you.
My company is Heartcore Business, so you're always welcome to Facebook with Heartcore Business, or you could go right to our website, which is heartcorebusiness.com, like a heart. That's one of my shaman moments. The heart is not controlled by anything in the brain, and so I feel that is connected to our Creator. So my company is driven by the calling of our Creator, and so it's heartcorebusiness.com.
I love that. That is so beautiful. Well, I want to thank you again, Shonda, for coming and sharing your valuable wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you.
Now, here's our interview with Krystle Andrus Morissette. Hi, Krystle. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm so good. How are you, Christina?
I'm doing fabulous, and I'm super excited to have you out here today because we are hitting on a topic we don't cover too often on Savvy, and that is about communications and the effects of how communication can help grow your business, but also how you communicate affects every part of every relationship and every part of your life. So this is such an important topic. But before we go there, share a little bit about what brought you to helping women entrepreneurs and specifically starting the SWAT Institution.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. It's a big one. It's pretty loaded. I think we all kind of teach what we need to learn, and then once we master it, we become masters at what we really needed in our own lives, and that's what makes us a master. So for me, it was 6 years ago that I launched the SWAT Institute, which is now an international coaching certification program exclusively for women, and we're all over the world in 30 countries now. So it blows me away to imagine where I was when I was, in my, say, teenage years. By the time I was 15, I'd moved out. I was homeless. I'd gone through a lot of sexual abuse, in my family, and there were different, unfortunately, men. And at 14, I was stranger raped, like literally dragged behind a bush out, walking one evening. So I was really wounded and broken. And, by the time I was 17, I had the early signs of cervical cancer. And it just seemed like one traumatic event after another. And often as women, we will tell people, no one can take your power from you.
Yeah.
I remember hearing Oprah say that probably 20 years ago. No one can take your power from you, only you can give it away. But at the time, when her very first show came out, I was 16 years old and homeless. And I remember thinking, my power has been taken from me. I was a child. And so it became sort of a quest to take back my power, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time. But I really dedicated myself. Interestingly, I dedicated myself to helping other women, which I think a lot of coaches do, or helping people, not realizing we really are, in essence, trying to heal and help ourselves. And that's what's so beautiful about being able to use your life as Oprah would say, a classroom, being able to use your life and your experiences. So by the time I was 25, I'd gotten married really young at 21. At 25, 26, I had my 2 children. I gained about 100 pounds, and thus became the journey of, my God, how lost have I gotten in this world? Crazy. By the time I was 30, lost the weight, self-published my first book. By the time I was 33, Louise Hay from Hay House flew me down to California, and there I was signing a 3-book deal. By the time I was 40, I was an international best-selling author, and it's been just a crazy whirlwind. But I think it's making the decision to decide that you matter and your life matters, even if no one has told you that before.
That is so cool that you went here, because I think and I've heard that said too, that no one can take your power unless you let them, but it's not so easy and clear cut as that, because I think when I was 13, we had a string of rapes in Virginia where I grew up, and they were done on the front porch of people's houses, so it was like in broad daylight, so you think in broad daylight, not.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my grandma when I heard this string of rapes, I said, if anyone ever does that to me, I would cease to want to exist. And would you believe that the very next night I was almost raped? Someone rescued me in time, but my grandma walked in and saved me.
Yeah, it changes your trust in the world. It changes who you are.
Yes. And so what I find amazing here is that you, over a period of time, and that's another thing that I think has come up over and over again in our show, is that people tend to think that whatever you've reached, the heights of whatever you've reached, if you become a great coach or a great author, they seem to say, okay, you came out of the box like that, you had no trials or tribulations, everything was easy for you.
Yeah.
That's not the case. It's really an ongoing journey. It's not like, boom, you got there and it was easy. And
No, it's forever. And the truth is, Christina, you're never there. Where is there? There is here, and here you are, and this is where you're at, and there is no there. So when people say you got there, it's like, no, I'm not there. I'm here. And it's like brushing your teeth every day. So, self-love and empowerment and checking in with yourself and really paying attention to how you're showing up in your life and letting your life show you the truth about how you're showing up, because we can say we're empowered. I often have women that say, I'm such an empowered woman, and I am, but they have one trauma after another, they have one drama after another, they have one tragedy after another, they're struggling to make money, then I have to stop them and say, God bless you, I love that you believe in yourself, and it's great to have positive affirmations, but let's tell the truth. Because if we can get down and dirty and dig into that stuff and shine light on those trajectory-changing moments, we can find the gift in the garbage. But if you think just chanting positive affirmations and convincing yourself that you're empowered is the secret, we could all be empowered, and it's just not the truth.
Wow. That I'm also glad you brought this up, because it's true. I mean, for years I was living this, I'm on the top of the universe. I was working in corporate, having a good position, title, and my title was everything, that my title was my identity. And what is it at the end of the day? If your title gets stripped from you, are you nothing? So, I mean, it really comes, and I like the fact that you say, tell the truth. Where are you really right now? Where do you feel? What's going on in your life? You can't.
Yeah, if it didn't make you a bad woman, a bad mother, a bad daughter, a bad sister, a bad employee, a bad anything, if it had nothing and you could become an observer of your life without shame and judgment,
yes.
What are you really feeling under the surface? Are you angry? Are you fed up? Are you exhausted? Are you tired? Are you ashamed? Are you incongruent with who you really are? Are you making choices that are really, truly serving you? Are you stuck in a muck of mess? What's the truth? Because when you can tell the truth without harshness, with kindness, with love, with self-compassion, then you can own your story. And when you can own your story, it doesn't own you. Then you can really show up in life and not be afraid that someone's going to discover the truth, that secret stuff under there, you know, someone's going to knock you off your pedestal. You sort of just lay it out there and say, this is the truth of who I am, and I still deserve a great life, and I still deserve how to learn how to really communicate effectively. I still deserve love. I still deserve abundance, but this is the truth. And then you can get on with it, and you can really start dealing with what is and not with what you want it to be.
Yeah, in fact, that feeling of the imposter identity.
Syndrome. That's it.
Yeah,
that was, great. Some really powerful women, from Tina Fey to Meryl Streep to, I don't want to put in it, Sheryl Sandberg. Like, so many women said, I had it. You know, when I first got my book deal with Hay House, I was down in California, and there I was sitting having lunch with Reed Tracy, who's the president of Hay House, and he asked me to travel and do all the I Can Do It events with Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay, and he wanted to give me a radio show on Hay House Radio and Sirius Satellite, and I was 34 years old, and I said, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think, and he laughed his head off at me and said, you just have the imposter syndrome. That's what everyone does in the beginning. No one actually thinks they're equipped. Yeah. I said, but I don't have a PhD. I don't have it. He said, I can get 10 people with PhDs to back you up. You got what you got, and that's all you have to do is show up and be yourself. That's all we're asking. I'm not asking you to do a radio show and pretend to be Louise Hay. You don't have to know what Wayne Dyer knows. You just have to be you, and you're equipped and skilled to be you. That was the greatest advice that I really started learning at that point. Don't try to talk like someone else. Don't try to just, and you know that I made the decision, and I'm not recommending this to anyone, but at that point I even made the decision to not go. I didn't consciously make the decision, but I didn't go to other people's workshops. I mean, I always would read books. I love books. I'm a book junkie, but I stopped feeling like I needed to keep getting information from other people. I knew what I knew, and I knew what I wanted to teach, and I needed it to be very clear from my brain and my heart rather than speaking someone else's lingo.
Wow. And that's so true. When now Savvy Business Radio is the four and a half years out. And it took me a year to step into this with full power and say, this is me, because I did the same thing. I was like, I don't have a degree in broadcasting. There's no way I could do this. Now we are 3 years as an actual business and doing, and growing.
Bam.
Yeah. It took me a year to say, okay, I can do this. I don't need a piece of paper or something like that. And I think that is everyone. I mean, I've heard a number of my coach friends saying, I just need one more certification and I'm good. And then I'll start getting clients, or I'll start feeling like I'm worthy of this title as empowerment coach or life coach or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And and certifications, don't get me wrong, information is power, and knowledge is power, and education is power, but it's what you're going to do with it, and you got to step into it. Because we can be getting certified forever and always thinking, just one more, I'll be ready. And the truth is, step into it. I'm kind of guilty for always sort of building the runway while the plane is taking off. And it forces me to build the runway. If I waited till I had, I built the SWAT Institute, and when I first did that, now I had a nice following. At that time, years ago, it wasn't a huge database, but I had about 10,000 really high caliber, high quality, clients in my database. And so I decided, I just kind of put it out there, and I said, I'm going to build an international coaching school, and we're going to empower women all over the world. Now, I'm pre-selling it. It's not built yet, so you'll have to trust me that in 6 months from now it'll be ready. And I sold $150,000 in pre-sales that took that money, and then I was like, building the runway. And I knew that plane was taking off in March of 2010. And I took that $150,000 and I just found the most incredible employees and staff and the best platform. And we just started. And every year, like you, we're now 6 years in business. And, we're a 7-figure company now. And I've never had an investor, and we never had, we just kept taking what we had, and it was a grassroots movement. And it's now in 30 countries. So if you wait until you think you're qualified, you may forever be waiting.
Absolutely. And you know what's awesome the way you did it is you said, here's what I'm presenting. The following was there. Once they showed up, then now you got to move on it. Often people will build a product. They don't even know if the product, service, or information is one of which their clients need or want or desire. And then they're like pushing to sell it and kind of cramming in people's face.
And it's desperate. It's desperate. Rather than inspired work. You know, I remember years and years ago hearing Tony Robbins, and like literally I was in my teens. He might have been, you know, I think he's a few years older than me, so I might have been 16 and he was 19. And he was already selling the, like, I'm the power within or whatever the heck he was selling, and he was a giant, and yet it was like, no, you're 19. You can't possibly have had that great of success. But I remember one of his things was, you know, we always make decisions by either the carrot or the stick. You can inspire people to walk with you, or you can sort of beat them into walking with you. And when you're in that position of, like, you've got your stick out and you're scolding people, come on, give me your money. I mean, it's just a yucky way of selling. So I've always been sort of inspired selling and, you know, really creating fun, exciting, inspirational products that, you know, really hit people's emotional hotspots, and then you got to back it. You got to really give a product or a service that is 150% quality. And when you do that, now you've got grand slams. You'll hit a home run every time you're up at base.
I love that. And so now we're going to go into the topic of which that is very important, and that is, how does our communication or non-communicating effectively really hurt our business? Share with us some of your insights on communication.
Again, thank you so much for that. So my latest book that I've done, I did 3 books with Hay House, but my last book, this latest one that has come out, is called The Emotional Edge, and that's with Random House out of New York, which was so exciting to, like, be down with them now in Manhattan. So that book was a concept that I coined and created, which blew me away that psychologists had never created the concept and actually created a practical psychology on emotional age. So emotional age is different than biological age. But there's a similarity in the sense that we all have a chronological age. Biological age is sort of like, if you take really good care of your physical body, you could be much younger biologically than your age, or much older. Emotional age is the idea that you are showing up, compromising, negotiating, communicating in a way that's either very empowered or very disempowered. So often I might be working with a woman, or you might be working with a woman who's, say, 60. She's got kids, she's got grandkids, but man, under pressure, she really shows up like an angry teenager or a scared little child. Or on the other hand, I've worked with women who are 20, 25, 30. And they carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. You'd think they were 80, saving the world. And so this is sort of what I started to coin in this idea that we have an emotional age, and based on your emotional age, you will communicate and negotiate. The simplest way to break it down is to imagine that we all have a parent, an emotional age that's sort of like a parent archetype. And when I say the word archetype, don't get confused by that, or your listeners. It just simply means it's a big call to, it's sort of like you get all of these quantitative and qualitative descriptions in one word. So if I were to say the seductress, you go, I know that kind of person. Or you say the bad boy. That's an emotional age, and I would call that more your child archetype. That's the part of you that's demanding, that's a warrior, that knows that there's something out there you want to, you know, when people show up in a child archetype, no matter which one, I have a whole bunch of them that are a lot of fun that I coin under your sort of your child emotional age. You're going to start fast and furious. You're going to have these incredibly great ideas, and you're almost manic. You're so excited about them. And you will work really long hours, and then before you know it, you start to fizzle out. You come in late. There's always a drama. There's always something in your workplace. You're really bad with money. You are afraid of, you say things like, I don't know, my credit sucks. And that's a child archetype. That's an emotional age when you show up in your workplace. You don't really know how to say what you mean and mean what you say. You're coy. You're cute. And deals keep blowing up on you because you're not bringing your real, true, empowered woman to the table. You're bringing sort of a broken, wounded version of you to these business conversations, to these business situations, and you're thinking someone is going to save you at some point. They're going to see you're so cute, you're so charming, you're so fabulous, you're so something. And in relationships, these are the ones that start crazy, wild, passionate fireworks, and then before you know it, you have complete craziness and battling and abusive. And on the other hand, within each of us, we have a parent archetype, or we have what I call our mother energy for women. These are employees who will show up early and stay late. They are the best employees in the whole world, but they will never be the wind beneath their own wings.
Wow.
These are the women who will, well, my boss, I know it was my weekend off, but he really needed me, so I decided to work anyways. I didn't get paid, but I know eventually they're going to notice how good I am. Eventually someone's going to notice how hard I work. But no, you eventually have a nervous breakdown, or you eventually become bitter, or you eventually become broken. Your body begins to fail you. You've forgotten to take care of yourself. So that's that. But when you show up in an empowered woman or man archetype, when you're really an adult, you really sort of healed the wounds that have caused you, and it's not your fault. We all choose until we really become empowered, until we really master sort of our past. We own our story. We're authentic in who we are. We really sort of almost swing back and forth between being a mom and being a daughter. And we don't really know how to be a woman. And in truth, in the history of the world, in the her story of the world, there have never been women up until 30 years ago that have even owned or run their own corporations.
Wow.
100 years ago, women weren't considered people yet under the law in the world. In the world!
Crazy.
We weren't considered a person yet by law. We couldn't run for office. We couldn't own property. We couldn't have our own bank account. We couldn't have any assets. We couldn't. So when sometimes women say, I don't know, I'm still a little unsure. Well, of course you're unsure on how to run your own business. It's not in your DNA. It hasn't been in the history of the women who came before you. Maybe your mother struggled with making money. Maybe you have really self-limiting beliefs around money. Maybe you're afraid to talk about money. Maybe you were taught when you were a child that that's an inappropriate conversation to have, and so you're actually afraid to ask for what you're worth now. I mean, there's just a whole slew of reasons why we don't show up as a really empowered an adult and really know how to communicate and say what we mean and mean what we say and have integrity and have boundaries and to know how to communicate in a way where that person feels like you're listening and you're hearing them, but you feel heard and listened to, and you're able to create really winning partnerships and business arrangements.
I love this. What I got when I was hearing your archetypes is the parent archetype back in corporate was so me. I came in early, came in late, and it was interesting. I had the same kind of turmoil workout company after company where I would feel unappreciated.
Yes.
I'm like working my buns off 12, 14 hours and not getting raises. Oh, we have to cut back on spending. And then when they would dish out like you're not doing enough in the department, they would put out a company-wide email to everyone, and I would feel like it was directed towards me.
That's mother energy. That's it. You got it. And I was mother energy. Here's the thing. Wow. Yeah. Mother energy, if she can heal this, I think I just heard your kids going, Mom! And you want to know what's funny, if that's true, Christina? Because that's what our mother energy allows. Our mother energy, I've got kids at home right now, and I'm actually up here in Canada, so it's actually our Thanksgiving weekend. Of course my mother energy did an interview today. Okay, it's actually January. I don't know what we're talking about. But here, okay, so it's a little prearranged interview. Let's just say it. But here's the reality. For me, I would, because my mother energy would step in and say, you can't cancel. Yeah. You can't rebook. So we all have that. You know, I've got a lock on my door. My kids will still sometimes come up. I'll say, I have an interview right now. Don't make any noise. Keep the dogs downstairs. They will still come up and knock on the door because they forget. And somehow we've created an environment where our kids will say, oh, it's just Mom. Yeah. Daughter energy would whip that door open, fly down the stairs, and hit them. Don't make a sound. But women energy actually can laugh at it and say, well, we are work women. We're working from home. We have families. Yeah. But we really have to set those boundaries so that whether it's our children, our partner, our bosses, our corporations, our community, they're not taking advantage of us. Daughter energy won't get taken advantage of unless she wants to. Unless she's like, oh, you should take advantage of me. Maybe I'll get a raise. Yeah, right. Mother energy would be just like, take advantage of me because, listen, I actually metaphorically have a whip, and I whip myself every morning. You don't even need to, because that's how mother energy would do it. Whereas woman energy would say, I have boundaries. I really maintain a really balanced, healthy schedule. I take time for myself. I say no when I want to say no. I say yes when I want to say yes, but I really don't say yes unless I really want to do it. And here's the truth. for this interview this morning, I thought to myself, no, I really do want to do this because my family's not coming over till later, and why shouldn't I do this for myself? I should do this for myself.
Yeah, because you're seeing it as something that's for you and your business. It's a gift.
That's it. That's it. So woman energy would, but I would have to walk that out still in my mind sometimes. What would I actually would do it like this. What would my mother energy do? What would my daughter energy do? And what would my woman energy do? So my woman energy actually sent a little request to say, is there any other day? My publicist wrote back and said, well, you actually confirmed it a month ago. So my woman energy said, right. So that would be the right thing to do, is to maintain your commitment. And it's for you, Krystle, and it's for your business, and it's for, so this would be a woman energy decision.
Now, can you talk to me a little bit about different communication styles? Because I know me working in corporate for many years and doing high price deals, sometimes billion-dollar deals with the businesses I worked with, I could be super duper aggressive. But then talking with some people, they could be a little bit like passive aggressive, not really sure in their decisions. How do you come to a place where you're in the right balance in communication, where you're not too...
Wonderful. So part of the book, The Emotional Edge, is I created an empowerment spectrum. So part of the spectrum is sort of like, imagine a triangle. So on one bottom corner is the parent, one bottom corner is the child, and at the top is the adult. But running up through the middle of that empowerment spectrum is your communication scale that you're asking about. So at the very bottom, the very lowest place that a person can communicate is called passive. And that's really because we've had learned helplessness. We've had our power taken away from us, and we really sort of have this sense that I just have to I'm almost like a doormat. And so that would be passive, really passive communication, where you do whatever's told to you. Then you climb a level, and that becomes that passive aggressive. That becomes, instead of saying what you mean, you're quiet, but you slam the door. You kind of complain, you mumble, you grumble, your feelings are hurt, it's still very passive aggressive. Just above that becomes aggressive. That becomes that place where it's like, my needs are not being met, I want my needs to be met. Now you're showing up aggressively, you're forceful, you're demanding, there's a level of difficult, there's a level of gripping, forcing, it doesn't feel like you're in the flow. But people might say, man, she can get things done, but it doesn't feel good. Then just above that is a level called assertiveness. That's where suddenly you're really beginning to think about, okay, what are my intentions? Can I overlook the obvious? I have a little acronym called WOMAN, and it is just the W. What are my intentions? Like, what do I want to happen? I want to get this deal done. I want to make this deal happen. Can I overlook the obvious? And that means, can I not get caught up in the little he said, she said? Can I not get pulled into my ego? Can I not get pulled into the M? Can I manage my emotions? Really have my eye on the prize. Really think about what I'm wanting to accomplish here. Really making sure that I show up in a way where I'm really listening and I'm responding in a very empowered, kind, compassionate, assertive, reasonable way. Then the A, what is the A? So I haven't done this in a while. So what are my intentions? Overlook the obvious, ask the right questions. Here's what scientists have proven. Back in the 70s, they did these studies, and I won't get into all the experiments, but they realized why people become very passive or they have this sense of helplessness in the world. And that's when they began giving people antidepressants, because when you've had learned helplessness, something does change in the brain. And so they began giving people antidepressants. But what they also learned is that if we can learn how to ask people that are passive, scared, feeling broken, the right questions. You can ask them the right questions. They, in their own memory bank, their own little Google brain, their own little database, will always be able to grab the right answers. But people who have been abused or are passive or helpless often ask themselves the wrong questions. They would say something like, why am I not making any money? Why am I fat? Why does no one love me? Why doesn't anyone want me? So people, when we can start to ask ourselves the right questions, and we can start to ask ourselves in a way that will help our own brain do the work of saying, well, wait a second, do I even know that to be true? Have I even looked at my plan? Is there a flaw in my plan? Is there something I could do to troubleshoot this? What would be a solution to this? And then the last one is N, and that's negotiate new healthy boundaries. When you're angry, when you're hurt, when it's because the truth is, like we talked about at the beginning now, you're not negotiating healthy boundaries for yourself. By the time you get angry, it means you've already allowed someone to step over your personal, hey, this is what I accept, this is what's okay for me. So when you can get assertive, you can start to have those grown-up adult conversations with people, whether it's in business. You can say, what's your best case scenario? You could say to a client, what is it you really want? What is it that you're looking to spend? Why don't we do a discovery session and we can find something that's going to really fit your budget? Rather than, it's learning how to really show up assertively. From there, once you can really know that you know that if you get backed into a corner, you can use effective conversation and communication to get yourself out of any trouble, then you can shift higher in that communication scale where you start being a very accepting person. You sort of know, I can't make you be what I want you to be. I can either accept you or I can move on. And that then moves you into a place of love, of kindness, of compassion, joy. You start to have fun every day when you go to work. Life starts to be like you're laughing because you're literally like, man, I love what I do. And then that allows you to have a sense of peace of mind, peace in your life, peace in your bank account. And so peace and passive are as far apart as black and white. And we as women especially have to be really careful to ask ourselves, am I really at peace with this? Or have I become passive about this situation? Am I really at peace with my income? Am I really at peace with the way I feel inside my body? Am I really at peace? Or have I become passive or aggressive? And again, that's these great questions we can ask ourselves to empower ourselves. A great question I will ask myself is, what would courage have me do? What would courage have me do? Courage will always shift me back up into assertiveness.
I like that you broke it down because for me, I think I've confused sometimes the idea of aggressive and assertive, which are two totally different animals.
Totally different. It's the fork in the road. Anger is the fork. It's the anger. It's anger is the fork in the road. Injustice. I want my needs met. I need to get my needs met. My needs are not being met. So this is the big fork in the road. You can go aggressively or you can go assertively. One is going to get you to a very forceful, difficult, confrontational, someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. On the other way, it leads you into a win-win situation where you can really listen and say, well, what would be a win for you? Well, this would be a win for me. Why don't we try to create a plan or a program where we both feel like we're winning? Possible with your children, with your husband, with your mother, with your clients. What would be a win for you? Well, this would be a win for me. How can we compromise? Because that's what peace is, Christina. Peace is not all of us believing the same thing, having the same religion, believing in the same God, believing in the... Peace is saying, we don't have to believe the same, but I still respect you. I don't necessarily believe what you believe, but I respect you as a human being, and I will peacefully disagree.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this allows everyone to have their stake. And when you are dealing with, when it comes to business, it allows you both to look for the common good and the common win for both of you, because it doesn't have to be win on one side and lose on the other side.
Yeah, and so much so, though, when I do a business deal now, I never go into it with a full agenda and laid out, this is what's going to, I always go to the table so open-minded. Now, I'll even say something like this, I just wanted to have a conversation to see, what you're looking for. Dream your greatest dream. Paint your best picture. Tell me what it would look like, because I might be able to manage that. And if I can't, why don't I paint for you my best case scenario, and then let's paint a picture together. People enter into agreements with you that way because now you're building a relationship, and now you can have another follow-up conversation until you nail the deal and everybody's happy.
This is fabulous. This is wonderful information. Share with the audience how they can get your wonderful books, all of them.
Thank you.
Also, find out more about you and the SWAT Institute.
Yes, the SWAT Institute is my baby. SWAT Institute, like Special Weapons and Tactical. We are the new special and weapons team that's going to heal the world. So SWATinstitute.com. It actually stands for Simply Woman Accredited Trainer. In January, I have a brand new 12-week telecourse that we're launching that's in alignment with my latest book, The Emotional Edge. It's an absolutely magnificent 90-minute class once a week that's recorded that we dive into, and it's really, really economically priced. So you can find that on the SWOTinstitute.com. But on SWOT Institute, we have tons of give backs. We have mentorship coaching where we'll coach any woman anywhere in the world free of charge. We have, we just have a million and one. You can download my book, that's Simply Woman. It's an international bestseller. Truthfully, people say that all the time, but this really was number one. It was actually in the top 10 for the first year that it came out through Hay House. And here in Canada, 40,000 readers were polled across Canada to see which book most influenced their life, and it came in at number 14. Wow. So we're gifting that book now. You can go to SWOT Institute to get that. And if you want more about the emotional edge, again, I just make my URLs easy, www.theemotionaledge. And you can get that book. There's meditations there. There's just so much. And of course, I have my Simply Woman magazine, which is simplywoman.com. But the best place is just go to SWOT Institute. That's my baby. We're just working with thousands and thousands of women now, and so that's sort of my go-to place. I offer coaching there. There's just so many give backs and wonderful takeaways.
Wow, you offer so much awesome information and help out there. Thank you, and thank you for coming today to share your wisdom and gifts on Savvy Business Radio.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's been a joy. And hey, Happy New Year.
Aw, thank you. You too, girl.